So I believe you should be able to see my cloud integration. Let me go to the edit phase. As John highlighted, we have two variants, as in the IBM MQ adapter is supported on both sender as well as on the receiver side. On sender side, when I choose IBM MQ, you would see three different possible options that you can choose from. Two of them are based on the JMS protocol, one with the polling mechanism, one with the subscription, and then we do have the REST variant as well. Let us deep dive into the subscription mode. So when you choose this JMS subscription option on the connection side, you can provide your host and port of your IBM MQ server. Currently, we do support basic, but soon we would have the client certificate authentication as well here. With basic, you provide the credential name. You can provide the queue manager and the channel name where a queue resides. In case you have a one-way SSL communication enabled, you then provide the Cypher Suite name as well. You can use a custom application name in order to specify a particular scenario. It could be a business use case as well that you can define here. There are different protocols that you can connect with the TCP and the WebSphere. This is also coming from a PO, so people having PO background would also be able to relate to this configuration. It depends whether a client and server based on the same machine or on different. So based on the scenario, you can choose the right network protocol in your case. And then you can also define the char set ID that you are going to consume the events from the IBM MQ server. On the processing side, we do have queue and topic, so you can read the data from both queue and topic. With queue, you need to provide the queue name. You can decide to provide the target client as WebSphere MQ or JMS compliant. With WebSphere MQ, you do not get the basic JMS RFS2 headers, but with JMS compliant, you get all the JMS headers that are part of your message. So depending on your use case, you can choose either of them. On the sender side, we do have the transactional setting that you can enable. So if you enable that, you will get the following option as well. If you disable, then you would just receive the message. And if your IFO fails, you would no longer be able to do the transaction on it. But if you enable it, you can then decide in scenario when you receive the message from your JMS queue, it's in your integration flow. And if the message failed in a subsequent step, you can decide whether you want to move the message to another queue. You can decide what would be the retry attempt after which it should go and which queue it should go. You can also decide to keep the message and you want to process it again in some scenarios. And of course, if this is disabled, then the transaction is no longer enabled and you will receive the message in your write flow, and then you can then later decide to send it to some other application or some other queue yourself using the receiver adapter if required. This, as highlighted, is a JMS subscription, which means that there is an active subscription always, which implies that as soon as the message is delivered to a particular topic or to a particular queue, you would receive the message real time, near real time. In case you choose a polling mechanism of JMS, which is the other variant that is supported on the sender side, in that case, you then decide to poll events using the JMS protocol from the queue or the topic that you choose from. The connection tab remains pretty much the same in terms of the authentication and in terms of the details that you need to provide in order to connect to your IBM MQ server. One thing that would change is that you need to also provide a polling interval. Since this is a polling mechanism, you can then define the time interval when you would want to retrieve the data from your queue or a topic. And then there's also a max wait time that you can also configure. This configuration helps you to make sure that your adapter, the sender adapter, waits for a specific amount of time. So in case there is no message, it will wait, for example, in this case, 100 milliseconds to receive any new message. You can, of course, increase it or decrease it based on your scenarios. On the processing side, we do have queues and topic. With queues, you provide the queue name from where you would want to receive the message, the target client, and the JMS transaction handling remains pretty much the same. With polling mechanism, you also have an option of deciding whether you want to make sure that all the worker nodes within your cloud integration operates, or you can also then decide that you want to operate on a single worker node based on the use case where you would want to retain the sequence and other things. You can decide whether you want to choose a single worker node to operate on. And then you have also an option to control the number of messages that you would want to have in a single poll. So you can decide, and this is per node, meaning if you have enabled this poll on one worker node with a max message node as 10, you would have one worker node and it would poll 10 message every poll interval that you specify. And if you disable this configuration still remains, but then this 10 message would be happening on all the worker nodes that you have active in your cloud integration. In case you have two worker nodes, then you will have 10 message per node that would be operated on your cloud integration. In case of topic, you can define the topic name or a topic string. It supports both of them. There's client ID and client subscription because topic creates a durable consumer within IBM MQ. So you can define the client ID and subscription ID in order to create unique durable consumer based on the client ID and subscription ID that you provide here. Then we do have the IBM MQ receiver adapter as well, which is also two different protocols, the JMS and the HTTP protocol. If I choose JMS, let's first look at that. The connection tab, again, it remains the same with you to provide the hostname, port, authentication, the queue manager, the channel configurations, the cipher suite name based on the SSL enable or not. On the processing side, you can decide to send a message to a topic or to a queue. In case you choose a queue, you can provide the queue name, the target client. Again, this will help you to regulate the RFS2 headers, the JMS headers. If you want to send it as part of your message, or if you don't want to, you can choose accordingly. And then you can also enable the transaction. On the receiver side, it will then the adapter would, based on this configuration, if the message was successfully sent, it will perform a commit, or it will do a rollback based on the communication when it happens with IBM MQ server. We do have an advanced option as well, where you can decide if you want to send a message as a text or as a byte message. You can provide your own correlation ID. This is a positions mode that we were talking about, where you can decide to send a message as a position message, which would survive a restart of your IBM MQ server, or as a non-position message. You can decide the reply to destination queue, the expiration time of how much the message should survive in your queue or a topic, the priority of the message, and also the timestamp associated to it. You can also using this table can provide different JMS properties. These custom properties that you create here would be part of the message that would be sent to the IBM MQ server, and that would also be visible within the named properties of your IBM MQ console. So you can see that there as well. So this was about the JMS setting. We can quickly have a look at the REST variant, where we have the sender adapter again with the REST option. When you choose it, this is a polling mechanism with REST protocol at the background. Here you provide the address of your endpoint that you would want to connect for your IBM MQ server connection. Here we do support two type of authentication right now. We have basic and tokens-based authentication. In REST API, you can also connect to an on-premise IBM MQ server using the cloud connector. So you can choose on-premise, and then of course you can provide the location ID, and then you go to your IBM MQ server via the cloud connector configuration. On the processing side, we do support 3 different versions of the APIs provided by IBM MQ. Each of these versions have different possibilities that you can do with the adapter. So for example, in receiver adapter, I'll show you some scenarios as well. You can choose the API version that you would want to interact with based on the IBM MQ server that you are interacting with. You provide the queue manager name, the queue, and then there are different processing mode that you can operate on the sender side. So you can decide to choose whether you want to read and delete at the same time. You want to delete the message only after the iFlow execution is completed, meaning that you read the message, you process your iFlow execution, and then only after your iFlow execution is successful, you delete the message later. You can also decide to choose keep message and process again for your testing scenarios as well. Here we do have the max number of messages per node again. So each poll, how many messages you're going to poll from a particular topic or a queue, you define it here. You can then, of course, provide the request headers. So in case you want to provide any custom headers at time of polling, you can also provide that. And then with the response header, you can control what headers you get back from the IBM MQ server. When it comes to the receiver adapter, it also has the REST protocol which you can choose. So when you choose the IBM MQ adapter, it will give you an option of choosing JMS and HTTPS. HTTPS is the REST protocol variant of IBM MQ. Connection type remains pretty much same as the REST variant of sender adapter. And on processing side, you would have option of writing data into a queue. You can also read data from the receiver adapter using these option of read, and delete. And if you choose to use the read, then you have another option that you can also use to delete. Once you read the data, you process it, and then you want to delete it later. So these are the options that are available on the receiver side. Again, you have possibility of choosing different API versions with IBM MQ. And then based on these versions, you can also see that you would have different, possibilities. So for example, with version 3, you can also decide and you can provide the message priority for a particular message. With version 2 and version 1, it doesn't exist. So based on these API version, you will have different functionality, and you can also decide to choose based on your IBM MQ server version as well. You have the possibility of providing the correlation ID, the message expiration time, whether you want to send the message as a persistent or as a non-persistent message, and then reply queue as well. So this is on a very high level, all the different possible combination, different possibilities that you have with our IBM MQ adapter. Let's very quickly look at a quick demo. So I have a scenario wherein we have IBM MQ on the sender side. I have a JMS subscribe variant, and this is already deployed, meaning there's an active subscription on it. We are going to receive a request of order create, and I'm listening to this particular queue. We will get the data. We will do some manipulation on the data. In this case, I'm sending it to a process direct adapter, which is a different type flow in my integration suite, which is going to send the data to a CRM application, receive a response back. Once the response is received, I'm sending this data to a different queue. In this case, I'm sending it to a response queue. And of course, as part of sending the response, I'm also adding, in this case, the order ID as a correlation ID, which will help me to search the message later on. Also a customer ID as part of the JMS message property. Let me very quickly initiate one message. And I'll also go to my monitor tab to see the execution. I've triggered a message, and I see that the message is also delivered right away to me. I would have received the message, I would have sent it to a CRM application, got an order request creation request done, and this should then ideally send the message to my response queue, which I will bring up now here in my screen. So this was a queue that I was getting the response in. I just got a message here with the demo receiver application and that I've chosen. And if I go and look at this message, and if I go to the name property, I see the order ID. I see the customer ID that I was sending as part of my write operation. So this is a very quick demo of the sender and the receiver adapter, along with the functionalities that we do support in both the variants of the adapter.